Stream sound check 1, 2, 3, 4.
Good evening. My name is Kira Riley. I'm a reporter for the Arizona Capitol Times, and I'll be the moderator for this evening's debate. The Citizens Clean Elections Commission is the sponsor of this event. As the state's voter education agency, Clean Elections is the official sponsor of Arizona debates, so voters have the opportunity to hear directly from the candidates, ask questions on the issues that matter most to them, and vote informed. Voters that are watching this debate live, you can submit a question at any time by emailing debates@kc-a.com, by texting 408-302-1810, or calling 480-937-1253. We may not get to all audience questions tonight, but we will do our best. Tonight, we'll be hearing from candidates in Legislative District 8, which covers Tempe, Scottsdale, Mesa, Phoenix, and the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community. As this is a primary election debate, candidates are competing against others in their party to become the official party nominee. All registered voters, including independent voters, can vote in the primary. Independent voters can choose a single party ballot they wish to vote. We will kick off the evening by hearing from Democratic candidates for the House of Representatives in Legislative District 8, who will debate their partisan opponent for approximately an hour. We will conclude around 7 p.m. Candidates, you will have 1 minute for your opening and closing statements and 1 to 2 minutes for your responses to voter questions. We encourage an open exchange of dialogue between opponents. If you feel the need to respond to another candidate's comments after they conclude speaking, you may do so. I may limit responses for time management purposes. And we remind the candidates and the audience that this is a respectful, courteous, and professional environment. Our goal tonight is to connect candidates and voters so our electorate may vote informed. In the House, voters get to vote for 2 candidates. Your Democratic candidates are Janine Connolly, Brian Garcia, and Juan Mendez. The order in which the candidates will speak has been determined by alphabetical order by last name, starting for opening comments. Closing comments will go in reverse order. So, Ms. Connolly, you will start us off tonight with opening remarks.
Good evening, everyone. I'm happy to be here. Happy to be here with Juan and Brian. My name is Janine Connolly. I'm a candidate for the Arizona House. I am a single mom who got herself through college while raising 4 daughters. I have degrees from MCC and ASU. I have a master's in advocacy communication, which is giving voice to the marginalized and influencing policy. And I look forward to going downtown to put that one to use. I'm a skilled community organizer, and I have the ability to bring people together and really work to solve problems. I'm the get it done girl. And those who know my strengths, who know my work ethic, and just my passion for doing good have encouraged me to run. I've been running since July, and I want to assure you I fully understand that the word represent is in the title of this job. I intend to represent the voters of LD8. So I'm here tonight to earn your vote, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you. All right, we'll go now to Mr. Garcia.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brian Garcia. For my family, education is the American dream. I was born and raised in Arizona by parents from El Salvador and the Pascuayaki tribe in Mexico. Upon becoming citizens, they fought to ensure my brother Aaron and I had opportunities and access to these opportunities. My desire to serve is rooted in fighting for our families and our community. This is home. I was raised by our community. I'm the first one in my family to graduate from high school, college, graduate school, and earn a law degree, all from ASU. I'm a community advocate and attorney and a proud product of the LD8 community. As a first-generation graduate of Tempe Public Schools, I served on the Tempe Union High School Governing Board as president and vice president. I have been fighting to protect public education, advocating for pro-democracy policies, and have represented unaccompanied children. I'm running clean because I'm tired of working families like mine being sold to the highest corporate bidder. And while we feel the implications of anti-worker policies, and we need to make sure that we're working for working families. And I'm grateful to earn the endorsements of a strong progressive coalition of individuals and organizations that are fighting for issues on the front lines. I look forward to the discussion tonight. So thank you, Clean Elections, and everyone joining us.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Mendez, you're up next.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Juan Mendez. I have had the honor of being your state legislator for the last 12 years. And this election, I am running for one of our 2 open house seats together with Brian Garcia. I am grateful to the Clean Elections Commission for making politics without dirty money possible, and I'm thankful for everybody watching online. I come from poverty. Grand Avenue, trailer park, food stamp poverty. My family went through domestic violence, mental health issues, and foreclosure. It wasn't our hard work alone, with my single mother always working 2 jobs, that helped me transition across the poverty line. I'm here today as your clean elections candidate for the House, as a 2-time graduate of ASU, a father of 2 toddler daughters, and with a strong sense of civic responsibility because my community cared for me and invested their resources in my future because they wanted to see me succeed. I'm a first-generation Chicano, born, raised, and educated in the Valley. I'm a product of this state legislature. As a past community organizer and former nonprofit leader, my background is in bringing together the people in need and the solutions they need, all while conducting research, developing policy strategies and priorities with others in our community to lead effective policies and programs. I do this because I know firsthand my success was and still is dependent on community investment. And I serve to lead us back to a government that wants to see to it that the people of our community are just as successful, if not more successful, than the wealthy special interests that fund their privatized campaigns. I continue to run for office even after years of abuse from our Republican-controlled legislature because while some of us might be living the lives that are pretty well off, too many of us are stuck at the edges, just trying to get by. And even though after the pandemic, people say things may have improved on paper, but we have an unhealthy amount of our neighbors who are still falling through the cracks. And instead of investing in you, the worker, the student, or our community, we have a group of ideological radicals that trip over themselves to give away their taxes as incentives to corporations and industries that most likely funded their dirty campaigns, all while they're cutting preventative services and denying for years proper investment in public education and healthcare for children of working families, because their radical ideology tells them that we would be ruining your children if we were to give them healthcare they didn't earn. Or it's a waste of taxpayer money to invest in properly funded public education system when there are so many for-profit charter schools that are, for some reason, more deserving of our taxes. Again, I'm here today because my community wanted to see me succeed. My former Congressman Harry Mitchell is always saying, to this day, you don't succeed unless a lot of people want you to. And again, I know this first to have a government that wants us all to succeed, that works for us all to succeed. I'm running to take back our government from the special interests that take advantage of radical Republican puppets and return it to the people, to serve the people, not money. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, we'll start first with education tonight. So the first question I will hand to you guys, again, 1 to 2 minutes for responses. Do you believe Arizona's K-12 public education system as a whole is adequately funded? If not, how much more should the state spend, and how do you propose raising that money? We will start with, we'll go in reverse order, so we'll start with Mr. Mendez. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, yeah. So no, we do not have a properly funded education system. I don't believe we've had a properly funded education system for my entire existence here in Arizona. So we have a lot to, we have a lot of progress to make in terms of that. What we need to be doing in terms of how much we need. I mean, there isn't just one specific dollar amount or one thing that needs to be done. We've been failing public education for years. There's so much that needs to be fixed. We need to get rid of the aggregated expenditure limit that doesn't allow public schools to spend the current money allotted to them. We need to renew a resilient and sustainable Prop 123. And then we need to start paying for everyone in the education system, from support staff to teachers. And then we need to undo the regressive Republican flat tax that means the working poor are paying a larger share of their income in taxes than the super wealthy. And then only then will we be able to properly invest in public education. But even then, for any of that to happen, we need to elect the progressive Democratic majority to start on any of that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Garcia, we'll move to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I do not feel that our education system is adequately funded. In fact, it is antiquated and needs to be addressed. As Senator Mendez referenced the aggregate expenditure limit, that was a major issue for us serving on the school board. We could not function and provide our essential services and operations and provide for our students without having to basically wait for the legislature to move on it. In addition, we need to be looking at investing in education. Invest in Ed got kicked off the ballot years ago when the chamber went back in and wanted to make sure that didn't get on the ballot for folks to vote on. That is incredibly frustrating because we know that Arizona is not funded properly. And so how do we do that? Senator Mendez referenced a handful of those things. In addition, looking at how we rein in and repeal all ESA vouchers. It is a clear detriment to our public schools, and our students are feeling it. Our teachers are feeling it. It is an essential that we address that from day one and fight for our public funding in schools. In addition to looking at what Governor Ducey has negatively impact with the flat tax, we are seeing that now with what happened with the budget this year. And so there are a range of things, but at the end of the day, right, it's being student-centered, education-centered, and really pushing for a pro-education budget.
Thank you. Ms. Connolly?
Thank you. I agree with both of my opponents. They bring in great points. And education is really frustrating right now. My kids all came through public education in Arizona, and I'm grateful for teachers who continue to invest their time and their incredible talents, even though we're not giving them the backing that they need. For administrators who have to become creative to work with what we've given them or what they end up with, I should say. And it's hard, voters bring up to me all the time, why are we consistently 47th, 48th in the nation? And that is hard year after year after year. I do want to say that I think that the first thing that we can do is start to roll back vouchers. And, it's just something that has to be addressed because it's weighing so heavily on the budget. It's just a very obvious fix, and putting guardrails in place for that program also really important, because voters are telling me at the door that what they'd like to see is more pay in the hands of teachers and staff, that they would like to see public money go to public schools. And we need to integrate those very important voter sentiments into whatever we do to bring this together. It's something that has to be looked at inside, outside, upside down. I'm not sure that I agree that we need a Democratic majority to do it. I think that we need people who understand the value to our economic well-being as a state, to bring our education system up to a level that really produces, quality education for every child, which means they're going to be an incredible workforce moving forward. It's important to establish guidelines on community college so that everyone can have that higher ed that wants to go in that direction. And really, we need to streamline things for the success of the current students and the students who are following them, so that they'll have a future.
Thank you. So I heard ESA, the ESA program mentioned. So would you advocate for eliminating, stripping back, or otherwise reforming the ESA program? And what policies would you bring to the table? And to what level would you want to see reforms? Ms. Connolly, we'll start with you.
Thank you. I would like guardrails to be put in place for how the ES vouchers are spent. I'd really like to see us roll back as many as seem unfair, so that we have equality among schools. And I also feel pretty strongly that guidelines need to be in place that help protect testing, that we see results from all the schools that we are funding. And if they don't want to participate in that, then we need to probably take a long, strong look at that. But I do feel strongly about special programs for children with special needs. I'd like to see the vouchers for those programs protected. And I want to be very clear on that. I'm not talking about everything across the board, but absolutely it's time to start looking at how we can effectively balance what's going into schools across the board. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Garcia.
Yeah, so, there's a lot here to unpack in such a short amount of time, but I think at the core is that ESA voucher expansion is hurting Arizona families and our students. We cannot be moving forward with this, and it's especially showing where the money is going, right? Wasting taxpayer money on Legos, of all things, in addition to many other things that, we're wasting taxpayer money on, and it's hurting our budget. This is why Arizona Save Our Schools endorsed Senator Mendez and myself to really address and get to the core of why this is happening. Any school that gets public funding should be subjected to public oversight. There's no question about that. That needs to be clear in how we move forward with education. I do think that we need to have a Democratic majority to do what is possible, because we've seen and we've been operating under a Republican majority for so long, and we've seen the detriments that it has had on education in Arizona. That is very clear, especially from serving on a school board. We are so tied to a funding mechanism that is just not sustainable and antiquated. And that is also has shown to come out in the programming, right? We're not funding our arts. We're not funding our STEAM. We're not funding our SPED programs. We're not funding ELL. I was a former ELL student. I struggled through school. And while I disagree with Janine talking about testing, that should not be a condition. We know students are not determined based on what testing scores that they get. I am an example of that. These statistics are only hurtful and do not measure the likelihood of success. If that was the only sole determining factor for funding, we would not be able to move forward and appropriately fund education. We need to be thinking holistically and critically about how we're moving forward in funding our education, and that starts with addressing vouchers.
Thank you. Mr. Mendez, what do you know?
Yeah, thanks, Kylie. So first, I got to go back and respond to Ms. Connolly's first response. You can't really do anything to fix public education with our current legislature. They won't let you touch anything to do with vouchers, so then there's no money to do anything with the education going forward. There is no personality that's going to change that reality at the legislature. There's just too many there's too many radical Republicans and no more moderate Republicans. So there is no working with them to fix education. So what we need to do to fix, ESAs. Public oversight would be, the smallest thing to begin with. And we have to start somewhere, but that's the smallest thing. At its core, this program is wrong and should only be used in the most very severe emergency situations. The way that it's being propped up right now, this gimmick, this scam really is public government supported self-segregation. We're ruining the essence of public education by allowing for this unfettered growth of ESAs. There's just no way around it. They're blatant with their scam of taking public money and putting it into the hands of people that did not need your help to go to a private or public charter or religious school. This really is just grifters taking advantage of a public, and so we have to make drastic changes to the ESAs.
Thank you. Right, Ms. Kyle, yes, I was going to say, would you like to respond?
Yes, thank you very much. I do understand that it's very difficult not to have a Democratic majority, but I also understand that we just can't wait. And so, my argument about, moving forward regardless, I feel very passionately about that one. And Brian, if we can't, if for some reason we don't come out with a majority in 24, we can't wait. We have to start finding remedies. We can't wait another 2 years. It's that dire. So just understand that the reason I feel really strongly about moving forward regardless is because it's time. It's time. We should not wait. Thank you.
Yeah, no,
Thank
absolutely.
you.
For the record, we're not saying that we need to wait. This has been in the works for a long time, and we're not seeing any progress, right? And so while, yes, whatever dynamic landscape that ends up happening at the legislature, yes, we're going to be working to move this forward regardless. But to be truly effective and to see what programs and protecting public education in the way that we need to have a Democratic majority.
Okay, thank you both. I'm going to move on to a voter question. This one is for Mr. Mendez. Why did you select the candidate Brian Garcia to run alongside with rather than Janine Connolly? You're muted.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry about that. So there are lots of reasons. I have known Brian Garcia for a long time, before he got even involved in the school board. And so, he's a tested candidate. He's run for office. Campaigning is a big a value for me. If you don't value campaigning, I don't want to work with you. And then connected to that is the public financing. It's been a rule of mine to only run as a clean elections candidate. I believe it makes us better politicians, not just different politicians, but better politicians. We don't, and it's not the idea that I trust somebody to take a donation and not have to vote a certain way. That's not the problem. Money chills voice. Money chills people from standing up. Money is why the majority of my colleagues don't speak on issues because they're afraid if they say something, if they vote a certain way, they're not going to be able to fundraise money. And you just shouldn't. You don't deserve a candidate that's going to have to do that kind of math. I've been doing this for so long. I've seen so many people get jaded and burnt out because of their relationship with money, because of the fact that they're spending the majority of their time fundraising, because of what they have to tell somebody for them to give them money. In Arizona, you can get up to $5,000 per donation. I don't know people with $5,000 that can give money away for running for office. I don't know what you got to tell somebody for them to give you $5,000 to run for office. And so in Brian, I saw that he had attested, care for education. He's got an experience as a lawyer, which is desperately needed at the legislature. We need anybody that can be able to put together, a sentence and an argument. So we're in need of his skills, and I didn't feel like I was taking a chance on him and trusting him with money because he agreed to run as a clean election candidate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Ms. Connolly, would you like to respond? Understand if not, we can move on. We have a lot of questions to get to too.
It's fine to move on unless are we going to talk about funding at this point or later?
We'll come back to it. Yeah, let's stay on the education beat and move to, I think Prop 123 came up as well. So lawmakers from both sides of the aisle, the session launched plans to retool Prop 123, measure giving schools additional funding from the State Land Trust Fund. Neither came to fruition, but how would you go about renewing or retooling Prop 123 in the next session? And we'll start with Mr. Garcia.
Yeah, I mean, right, we're looking at funding education is the core of this. So any mechanism and any way that we are able to fund education and properly fund it, not just say we're putting a few dollars here and there, needs to be done. Right, speaking to the choir here, right, and preaching to the choir that this is long overdue. We've tried different ways and mechanisms to do this, and it's hasn't had the effect or the impact that we needed to see that happen in Arizona. And who are the ones that are impacted the most, right? It is students, it is our teachers, it is our community, it is all of our support staff, and especially our rural communities. While we have the privilege of having property taxes being as a funding source for schools, our rural communities do not have that, and so are left with less money to operate and work off of and provide students the best programs and support systems as possible. So I think any way that we're able to move forward is something that I'm always willing to work forward on and continue as I've always been advocating for funding public education.
Thank you. We'll move down to Mr. Mendez.
Thank you. Yeah, so I definitely agree with everything that Mr. Garcia said. Even though I still feel like we're forced into the Prop 123 discussion or situation. I mean, it's not something I wish we were doing. This is the kind of thing where the Republicans are leaving us no other choice. They won't allow us to source sustainable revenue. So they came up with this idea of dipping into the State Land Trust. I'm not a fan of it. I don't want to jeopardize the fund and its ability to keep paying out into the future. I mean, it's what our future's my kids' education is dependent on. But at the same time, going back to, like how me and Brian Garcia pledged to keep working on anything, even though the Republicans won't move on ESAs, some of them do entertain the idea of renewing a Prop 123. So this is just what we're left with, and we just have to make sure that we're using a certain percentage that doesn't jeopardize the whole fund. But again, I'd rather we weren't going down this route. I wish we didn't have to be here. But again, this is something that we can do.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Connolly?
Thank you. You know, Brian, I have to agree with Juan because I have studied this statute and understand, you know, the basic premise of what the fund is for. And I guess if in your earlier comment you're saying that the flat tax has been the problem, why would we not fix the flat tax? Why would we be taking from the fund, the state land fund? And so I'd really like to sit down and have a conversation with you about that so I can understand it from your perspective. But it seems to me it's apples and oranges when we should be working with apples and apples.
Yeah, I mean, education funding is a complex beast. I was fortunate enough to get a certificate in education finance when I was on the school board because it is so complex, and I wanted to make sure that I was fully understanding the levers and the implications of every decision. And Prop 123 is one element of the larger funding mechanism, and that doesn't even touch the federal operating and how much funding comes in from the federal government. So it is a complex system, and I've along with Mr. Mendez here, Senator Mendez, have been working to look at, when I was on the school board, working together to figure out how best we can move forward, knowing the implications and knowing the restrictions and limitations. I take a very expensive view just because I know how difficult it is and how complex it is. But yes, it's always a opportunity to continue getting into the details because that's where everything truly is done.
Thank you. All right. Yes. You'd like to?
Brian, I agree with you on that. It is a complex formula. And wouldn't it be amazing if we could figure it out?
Okay, we're going to move now to another hot topic this session. So in your opinion, we're moving to abortion. Apologies, I missed that part. So in your opinion, should abortion be illegal in all or almost all cases? Should it be illegal in most cases? Should it be legal in most cases, or should it be completely legal? Where would you draw the line, if at all? And we will start with Mr. Mendez. Sorry
about that. Yeah. So abortion is healthcare. Abortion should be legal. Healthcare should be legal. It's not my purpose in life as a politician to draw any kind of line for anybody else. Everybody else has their own agency. It's up to, the person, their healthcare professional, their family to make that decision for themselves. So you shouldn't have any kind of politician who's interested in telling you how you're going to grow your family, if you're going to grow your family, when you're going to grow your family. I have 2 young children right now. It's not for everybody. I mean, we're letting people raise their children by themselves. I mean, there's so much support that is lacking for our community that to force people into having a child that they can't and or don't want at that moment is evil. It's coming from insecurity. It's coming from a fear of lack of control, wanting to control other people. It's just a disgusting place. Politics have no place in healthcare.
Thank you. We'll move now to Mr. Garcia.
Yeah, I echo what Senator Mendez has mentioned, right? Abortion is healthcare. Abortion is a right. And it is really important that we vote for the Abortion Access Initiative here coming November to enshrine it in our state's constitution. We know that we cannot rely on the other entities. We've seen, what harm the U.S. Supreme Court has done. And not just on that, and coming for the rest of reproductive freedoms. It isn't just abortion, right? It is expansive and it goes so much further than that. And it needs to be legal, and we need to be able to protect it at all costs and every front. And so I'm fully supportive of it and continue to working for and protecting abortion and reproductive freedoms. And we've seen the implications that it has also on families of color. It's super critical that we're addressing every family and not interfering with their rights.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Connolly.
Thank you. Yes, amending the Arizona Constitution to establish a woman's fundamental right, or I should say a person's fundamental right to an abortion, is absolutely what we need to get done this November. I feel very strongly about this. Of course, I'm a woman, and so I've been through quite a bit, but also raising 4 daughters, and all of their friends. But the other part of it is just to be thinking about all people who are impacted by this possibility and all of the emotion that goes to it. I want to go so far as to say that women should have that basic right. They should be able to make the decision on their own. They should be allowed to do that privately without government intervention. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if I might add as well, I would like to, provide additional context too. When I was an attorney for the Florence Immigrant and Refugee Rights Project, I often came into clients and my pregnant clients were often teenagers, struck with the decision to figure out how best to move forward for their lives. And it was a very obviously personal and difficult one. But one that we always leave out is how best to support them because they are in detained shelters. And so being thoughtful and mindful of, yes, making sure that everyone is included. But when the Roe decision was leaked, we knew what was coming and we knew we had to act quickly. And so making sure that every single person is advocated for and protected and addressed. Right.
All right, I apologize for that. We had a slight technical difficulty, but we're going to get right back into it and move to a voter question. This is a question for Mr. Garcia. Although obtaining a Democratic majority is the most ideal, how will you make progress with another Republican House majority?
Yeah, of course. Thank you for that question. So when I was on the school board, I often worked with my Republican counterparts, and particularly because, right, it was a nonpartisan framework, and that's what we always did. And so I would take the same approach in moving forward here. Granted, it's a very different governing body. But what I have found is so long as that you lead with your values and you're not compromising in your values and you're able to connect with other folks in that manner, you're able to find solutions to move forward. One of those in particular for us was funding our extracurricular and our activities, because at the time what we were doing was essentially having folks serve as bill collectors at schools, and that was a barrier for our students. So what we wanted to do is, because we believed that public education should be free, as states in our Constitution, that even those activities, those opportunities that allows them to thrive and grow beyond, needed to have access to those. And so we were able to eliminate that barrier and also eliminate that barrier for our teachers that was also burdensome. Granted, every budget is very different, but at that moment in time, that was something that we agreed on and we were able to move forward because we were so rooted in our values and we were rooted in the community and what was truly needed. And so I would take the same approach and take that perspective and also bring my skills as an attorney in negotiating, but I'm happy to always look forward for ways to move the work forward, as I've always done.
Thank you. And I'll rephrase that for our other candidates as well. Yeah, if we, do have a Republican majority, how would you work with, or even not, how would you work with Republican colleagues to get legislation passed? And we'll start with Ms. Connolly.
I don't have a problem working with whoever wants to come to the middle and try to move good policy forward. I feel like the top issues of the state have been shelved for a while. If you read the Arizona Republic's first week of headlines for the last 7 or 8 years, they tell you things the legislature needs to work on, and 5 of them are exact same things for 7 or 8 years. And those issues they need to be taken off the shelf. They need to be dusted off. We need to bring whoever belongs at the table to the table, have discussions, find continuous threads, and move some of these issues forward. And I think that I'm talking about the environment. I'm talking about affordable housing. I'm talking about water. I'm talking about homelessness and then just a plethora of things that have gone unresolved. Unfortunately, it seems like people are focusing on personal agendas. But I am, again, not going to have any problem working with people to get good things going for Arizonans. And it won't matter to me, their party, as long as they come in fairness and with good intent. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Mendez.
Thank you. This is not your grandmother's Republican Party, and I doubt it ever really was. There is no middle ground on any of the important issues that the public needs us to be working on. There is no middle ground when these extremist Republicans are trying to defund public education to then have, their government-sponsored segregation with the vouchers. There's no middle ground for taking away agency from people and the right to choose an abortion. There's no middle ground on water when the Republicans just don't want any groundwater protections at all. So I'm not deluded into thinking they just have to talk nicely to these people and they're going to change their minds. That's not how you approach the people that are systematically dismantling everything we rely on. But with that said, I work with these people. You have to work with these people because they're the ones in charge. I've gotten bills passed. It's not impossible. It takes years. It takes working with these. You have to build relationships with these people, and you just have to find the right one at the right time, who's in charge of the right committee, who's going to entertain your bill. But look, I'm always going to listen closely for opportunities to match the opposite party's rhetoric with legislation that betters, the majority of Arizonans. And I'll always, I can always adjust the tone of how I voice my ideals. And I'm always down for using third-party relationship building in hopes that, stakeholders are going to get my legislation in front of the public. But this legislature, this state, it's not missing another politician that thinks they're above, large dollar donations and somehow, there's some kind of horse whisperer for these Republicans. That's not what bipartisanship, that's not what it's supposed to be. We don't need another person trying to work with these Republicans. That's how you want another Kirsten Sinema? That's how you get another Kirsten Sinema. There's no working with these people.
Okay, thank you. We'll move now to a voter question. Would you eliminate ESAs for homeschooling families? And we will start with Mr. Garcia.
ESAs were created and designed for a very particular purpose. ESAs are going to be, and the expansive use of them have been harmful. If homeschooling families fell under that very specific category and that very, very narrow, then that's something that needs to be discussed in terms of the larger aspects of it. But really, that's a whole separate funding mechanism that we need to really look at. At the end of the day, vouchers are hurting our families, our students, and our community. There's no question about it. We are seeing it every day. We've seen it with this budget, and we're seeing it in schools every single day. So we need to be mindful in how we're supporting and protecting all of our families.
We'll go now to Ms. Connolly.
Would you read the question again?
Yes. In the vein of ESA reform, would you, let me make sure I have it exactly right, eliminate vouchers for homeschooling families?
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think that guidelines need to be put in place for homeschooling, and I think that there needs to be some kind of accountability. I don't know that I would remove vouchers from homeschooling. I think people have a lot of reasons for homeschooling, and some of them are very valid reasons, and for reasons why children need to be home to be schooled. But I do think that there needs to be some kind of checking system, and we don't currently have that.
Thank you. All right, we'll move to Mr. Mendez.
Thank you. So like Mr. Garcia said, vouchers are only hurting public schools, public education. Trying to split hairs over which population is, deserving of public funding for their own private choices is not productive to the discussion. When Arizona was sold on vouchers, we were told it was just for special needs children, very special needs children that could not get help in a public education system. They're only bringing up this population, that population is only just trying to grow it to a more unsustainable population so that it just bankrupts the state and brings down all of public education. So as it's in its current form, how ESAs are currently totally unregulated, and we're literally just giving parents debit cards with thousands and thousands of dollars that's many of them are just not spending at all and just sitting on for I don't know what. That's just not how you go about doing anything with your tax money. You don't want your tax money being doled out this way with no oversight. So as in its current the way it's currently put together, no, nobody should be using these vouchers. But once we fix and draw everything back and bring education as a public education back up to where it needs to be, then maybe we can start talking about expanding very, very limited populations. But again, a homeschooling, that's you choosing to make that choice. And I don't understand how you need my tax dollars to make your choice work when we're giving you a perfectly good public education system. You're choosing to not take that. I don't understand why you need my tax money to do that.
Okay, thank you. We're going to knock out a few more topics. We'll move now to housing. Given the critical role of the government in ensuring housing equity and affordability, how do you propose to use public resources and policy tools to address the housing crisis? Which specific initiatives would you prioritize to support low-income families, the homeless, and other vulnerable groups in accessing quality housing? We will start with Mr. Garcia.
Thank you. So, housing is such a key and important issue for so many folks. My generation can't afford to own a home. A dream that has been sold to us growing up has increasingly become out of reach. Housing must be viewed as a human right. in an age where costs continue to rise and ends are harder to meet for families, we need to pass rent stabilization. We have a rent class, and it is harder to make ends meet and to have actual livable, sustainable housing. And it's clear that we're at a place where financial assistance is needed to support our communities, especially at a time coming out of the height of COVID, right? We're seeing a lot of families being evicted just for unaffordability and so many other reasons. We're not having levels of affordability for our families. And we need to provide more support for unhoused populations without restrictions and the risk of compounding more issues. The ruling out of the Supreme Court saying that we're essentially we should not be criminalizing the unhoused. That is inhumane. And so not allowing that to move forward is essential. And providing wraparound and holistic services that aren't just a checkbox. I think a lot of folks, when we're talking about housing, like to talk about it on a very surface level and just kind of check the box. And I think we need to go deeper than that. We need to be very comprehensive, reimagine what housing looks like, especially for generations that are struggling to maintain any long-term housing and provide that support for our families.
Okay, thank you. We will move now to Ms. Connolly.
Thank you. The housing question is really sensitive. I've met people at the door, who really need to get out of their bigger house. Their kids are all gone. They'd like to downsize, take care of a smaller home, and it's just not cost effective to do that, which is sad because price of the market and also because of interest rates. I've also met people who very, confide in us that they've got 30-something-year-olds still living at home, that their kids can't afford to buy their own homes. And it is a very, very difficult situation. And for the first time, honestly, the great American dream of homeownership is almost out of reach for a certain segment of our population. And that's disturbing. That's uncomfortable. I do feel like we have to leave a lot of what happens with housing in the local control. I don't disagree with having some incentives in place or having guidelines in place. I don't disagree with looking at housing from a statewide perspective, but I think we have to be careful about taking too much away from cities and the counties that really work on general plans, on bringing things through design review, on really shaping what their community wants to become. I'm guessing that communities like Gila Bend and Apache Junction don't necessarily want to be Scottsdale or Tempe, and vice versa. And so that's why I feel like a lot of things need to be left in the hands of the local officials when it comes to housing. But I do think we have to incentivize. I do think we have to figure out new models. And I do think that we have to get the building community on board in a way that makes it profitable for them in some way. So I really advocate for working on this issue, for bringing every idea to the table and seeing if we can't get something moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mendez.
I'm sorry, Kira, could you say the question again? I just feel like I missed a part of it. I want to make sure I get it all.
Absolutely, yeah. So given the critical role of the government in ensuring housing equity and affordability, how do you propose to use public resources and policy tools to address the housing crisis? And which specific initiatives would you prioritize to support low-income families, the homeless, and other vulnerable groups in accessing quality housing?
Okay, cool. That was a lot. Okay, so I hope I get everything. So first off, we've given the current reality that the Supreme Court is pretty much, they say money is free speech and that it's pretty much illegal to be poor. I'm with Mr. Garcia that housing needs to be, a human right. We definitely just need to start from that as the foundation that we're working with. But in order to keep fighting for housing equity, there's a lot of things that we need to protect against, right? Even if you're lucky enough to have the cash to buy a house, I still feel like you got to win the lottery to get past all the private equity firms that are buying up all the houses, all the individual people that are buying up your neighbors' houses just to put up another Airbnb. I mean, we need to put limitations on how many single family homes that private equity firms can own. It's just irresponsible how many homes are sucking up and taken off the market. Proactively, we need to start building social housing. We need to start, if it's not the government building and maintaining the housing, it needs to be nonprofits that are building and maintaining public housing. We can't just hope and wait for the home builders to start building affordable housing. I mean, why would they build affordable housing when they can keep building, $300, $400, $500, $700,000 houses? I mean, and that's just part of the problem. If we're talking about population, I mean, we really need to start from with just very simple things of we need to stop demonizing poverty. It's so expensive to be poor. It's so impossible to find any kind of affordable housing right now. So I mean, for people to get off of the streets, they need to have housing. But before I ran for office, I used to run a nonprofit, community voicemail. I would go out to shelters, workforce development centers, and I'd give people their own individual voicemail number so they had a phone number to put on job applications, work with case managers. I mean, the government would make these people jump through so many hoops before they could get housing. And it's impossible for somebody to pick their lives up and change their lives if they don't have housing. Anybody who earnestly wants to talk about homelessness and the unhoused population, we just need to start with putting them in housing, putting them in home, and then things will start changing for them. Until we start doing that, we're not getting anywhere.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, we'll move now to water. Effective groundwater management is crucial for Arizona's future. What improvements or reforms would you advocate for in the state's approach to groundwater management to address current challenges and future needs? We will start with Ms. Connolly.
Okay, read the question one more time.
No worries. I know these are effective groundwater management is crucial for Arizona's future. What improvements or reforms would you advocate for in the state's approach to groundwater management to address current challenges and future needs?
Improvements or reforms. Excellent. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it is our dream to fill up the aquifers and figure out groundwater management. We have a long road to hoe on this one. And I do have to disagree with what Juan said earlier about not being able to resolve this. I don't believe that. I don't have rose-colored glasses on, Juan. I just happen to know the players, and I think that we are in a really good position right now as a state to sit down and talk and figure out, maybe parts of reform, but also figuring out the current programs and how to make them incredibly effective. People always ask me about a pipeline. I don't know exactly what they mean by that, but importing water from like the Midwest, I don't think is the answer. I think we have to conserve, number one, and I know it's not popular, but we may have to raise the price of water to get people to conserve because we live in a desert. And our reality is that we don't know that we live in a desert. We've been a little bit spoiled, and we have to really batten down the hatches. We tend to forget about water when it rains, and we need to not do that anymore. City of Flagstaff ran a wonderful program 12, 15 years ago, and we were all stunned when they announced that they were going to start raising the price of water to get people to conserve, and in the end, it worked very well. So it's not a pie in the sky idea, and there are other really good ideas that we can bring to the table. Establishing more groundwater and underground storage programs, etc., so that we have the amount of water that we need for the future. And essentially, what we're doing is preparing for the future, right? So I think we have to take a fresh look at water. I think we have to pull it off the shelf, dust it off, and really start working together to get that resolved.
Okay, thank you. We will go down to Mr. Garcia.
Yeah, thank you so much. Right, I think water is life. Water is precious. So we rely on it for survival and for growth. I think when we're talking about water, we need to be mindful, right? Yes, that we live in a desert. And so when we're talking about, right, when we're just mentioning about housing, developers and industries want to continue expanding and growing without limitation. We have very limited water source. And we're seeing that folks are going towards wanting to have our tribes provide that support because of their water rights. We need to make sure that we're protecting our tribal water rights and not going down and taking advantage of them. Particularly because the tribes have been here since time immemorial. So we need to be very respectful and mindful of that. Rising the cost of water, I don't think is an effective solution, particularly because we're already struggling to pay our bills to even afford our utilities. That working families just do not have, that's not an incentive that is going to be helpful. And folks who are able to afford it won't be necessarily be incentivized by that. Certainly coming from my own family and background and my community that struggle through and try to get ends meet. This isn't a solution that is helpful for working families and is really just going towards attacking our folks who can't afford it and our poor communities. So I think we need to be mindful when we're talking about water. We need to make sure that we're looking at all these different options, but at its core, really honing in on what protections are in place, why we're not or doing something in particular. But we cannot be raising the cost of water cannot be the end and only solution.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mendez?
Yeah, thank you. So first off, right, I mean, there is no serious Republican proposal for water. Ms. Connolly, that idea you keep hearing about building a pipeline from the Mississippi River to Arizona, that's a legitimate proposal that real Republicans are trying to push at the legislature right now. That's how gone and crazy it is right now. They honestly think that there's just some water out there that nobody's using that we can buy. And so entertaining any kind of a thought process along that line is just disastrous for living in the desert. In order to recognize that we live in a desert, we shouldn't be looking for more water. We need to be looking for ways to reduce our water usage, to save the water, the little water that we do have. Right. So, the real, we literally do not have any groundwater protections outside of the major metropolitan area. So outside of Maricopa County, maybe Tucson area, because the Republicans don't want us to have any groundwater protections. I mean, there's no working with that, right? So beyond just simply starting with the simple groundwater protections, after that, we need to establish legal protections for our rivers. We've been killing off rivers left and right in Arizona. We need to expand monitoring and reporting of water usage. Outside of Maricopa County, anybody can just drill and use as much water as they want with no protections. There's a little bit of a disagreement I want to have with Mr. Garcia. It's really just kind of splitting hairs in that, we can't raise water prices for everybody, but we should raise water prices for the heavy users out there. All those industrial water uses, Aquafina, Dasani, they're paying the same price for water that you are, and then they're selling it back to you at an outrageous price. There's just very simple things that we need to start from that Republicans do not want us to start from. So there is no talking to them into this. There's no working around it. They want to protect their constituents. They want to protect their funders, and that means doing nothing for water. So that will require changing the legislature.
Okay, thank you very much. Any response from, okay. I will move, oh yes, okay, Ms. Connolly?
Just one comment, respectfully, Brian. I do agree with you that when we look at tribal water, we really do have to consider the tribe and what the tribe wants to do with their water. It's their water. But there are some tribes who are actively marketing their water and not necessarily for absorbent prices. That may be where we go in the future, but the tribe would need to be willing. It's not a situation of pressuring them, just including them. Thank you.
I know, thank you for that. I think it's, absolutely incredibly important that it is the tribe's sovereign self-determination to make sure what it is that they want to do. At the same time, we know that folks have not been acting and dealing with good faith with tribes. And so That is really important to me to make sure that when we're thinking about this and looking at what our relationships are, especially with our government to government relationship with tribes, that we're really taking that into consideration. And then to add on to Senator Mendez's comment, I agree with you. I think that is a very reasonable and quite frankly, a great solution to start addressing. That is something that we do as we learn more and adjust as we go. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, I said we would come back to funding. So our last question before closing remarks, how are you being funded in this election cycle, and what went into your decision to choose that mode? And we will start with Ms. Connolly.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Well, I've lived in the community for 42 years. I kind of cast a wide net these days. My community is the entire state. Been a graduate of statewide leadership programs, and I do have a lot of great relationships. And so I have the ability to fund myself. You know, when I decided to do this, I didn't want to do what Juan is describing. I don't want to tax my friends, and I didn't want to meet people that were going to need favors for money. And so I have my own fund. I do think is fine and has happened for many years with many reputable elected officials that people will contribute to your campaign because they support you, because they support what you stand for, and because they agree with your philosophies. And that's exactly what's happening with my campaign. And I want you all to know that I would have no qualms about writing a check and giving money back to someone who just so adamantly disagreed with me on a bill. I also have the ability to do that. So I wanted to run traditional. I feel somehow very proud having raised my kids in poverty, and now we all have educations, we all have good lives. It is amazing to me. But I remember when the clean elections first came about, when the commission was first voted in, and all of the original intent of that program. And so I feel very good about self-funding and leaving some money in that fund for someone else who can't self-fund at this time, because it needs to be fair. And I have no problem with people running clean. In fact, I think it really has leveled the playing field, and I'm grateful for the program. I just chose to run traditional because I can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Garcia.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, obviously I'm running clean, and that is very important to me for a number of reasons. One, I don't want to be beholden to corporate and special interests. Like serving on a school board and going down to the Capitol to advocate for the things I care about, I've seen it up close and personal, and the pressure is real. That is just the reality. I want to make sure that I continue to remain rooted in community, because the community is ultimately the one that we're accountable to. But second, my experience running for a school board was very different. As folks may or may not know, there is no clean elections for a school board. There's something called the family tree, and basically has a large amount of money that can come in from your family tree to fund school board candidates. I was outraised 2-1, but we came out with the most votes in that race, particularly because we were so focused in our community and working to make sure that we were able to have that access and that playing field. I don't come from money. We grew up very poor and struggled to make ends meet. And folks like me with the current landscape and system would not be possible if it not be for clean elections. It is incredibly difficult to get folks, particularly working folks, to do this. We don't have other funds. I have a full-time job where I work to make sure that I'm providing for my family, both my mom and my brother, especially after my dad passed away from cancer. And so this really provides an opportunity to have a different level of representation down at the Capitol. As someone who's a member of the Pascua-Yaqui tribe, it is also very important to me because we don't have the Native representation that we need based off of our communities in Arizona. And so ultimately, at the end of the day, it came down to my values, and running clean aligned really well with that, and wanting to make sure that I'm also supporting the clean elections effort and looking to protect it as much as I can.
Okay, thank you. We'll move now to Mr. Mendez.
Thank you. Yeah, so clean elections, right? I've only ever ran as a clean elections candidate. I wouldn't run for office if there was no clean elections in Arizona. It's not just an economic decision for me. It's an ideological decision. I don't believe money has any room, any space. Money does not deserve to be anywhere near a public office. The idea that somebody is privatizing their public office to run for office, I mean, it's just beyond me. It seems like an oxymoron. It's just not how politics should be done. It builds a different kind of relationship with the voter. It makes the legislator have a different kind of outlook on how they're doing their job. I mean, you need to be beholden to somebody. I mean, you can't just. I mean, the idea of just self-funding and then not being beholden to the community, I mean, to me, doesn't jive. I mean, my voters, I'm only elected if the voters want to give me a small dollar donation, right? And for those people who don't understand, there's only like 2 states in the whole country that do a clean election system. And the other ones aren't even anywhere near as good as ours. The state says if I can find 200 people who live in my district to give me $5 each, the state matches their $5 contribution with a public grant so that I'm independent for money. So again, when I'm down there at the legislature introducing bills, voting on bills, I never have to worry about money. And money is never a calculation for me. And it should never be for any politician. So, I wouldn't be running for office if we didn't have the clean election system.
Thank you very much. All right, we will now move to closing remarks. As a reminder, you will have 1 minute. And Mr. Mendez, you were going to kick us off.
Cool. Okay, thank you. I see my role as your state legislator as ensuring that other people's short-term private interest never undermine our shared long-term public goods and goals. And that's what's at stake in this election. I could get reelected and not be able to accomplish anything if I get elected alone. For us to be successful, I need you to vote for all the progressive Democrats up and down the ballot. And I need you to vote for your clean elections ticket here in District 8. Electing Brian Garcia and me, together with Lauren Kuby, will determine whether moderates or progressives lead when Democrats take over the House this next cycle. We want a government that doesn't just wish and hope for its people to be successful. We want to lead our state by doubling down on its people, our most important resources. Our people's hard work deserves to be met with healthy communities and equitable opportunities. I received simple investments that inoculated me from the worst of poverty: childcare assistance, youth workforce development, mentors, case managers, healthcare. We don't do any of this anymore. We don't invest in our communities to meet their needs, and we haven't since I got out of middle school. Brian Garcia, Lauren Kuby, and I need your vote so that we can advocate on your behalf for bringing back investment into our communities, so we can take on our biggest problems together.
Thank you. Sorry, that's a minute.
Yeah, time. Yeah, sorry.
No, it's totally good. Okay, Mr. Garcia, we'll move to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you for everyone for tuning in. Juan Mendez and I are tested and trusted leaders. We ask for your vote because there's too much at stake in this election. We have been on the front lines and in the community and will continue to be. We are not taking money from corporate and utility special interests, and we're grateful to earn the endorsements of a strong progressive coalition of individuals and organizations that are fighting for the issues on the front lines, right? Endorsements from Arizona Attorney General Chris Mays, former Arizona Superintendent of Public Instruction Kathy Hoffman, Lauren Kuby. Also, please vote for Lauren Kuby. Save Our Schools Arizona, the LGBTQ Victory Fund, National Organization for Women, Teamsters, AFL-CIO, Unite Here, Worker Power, Climate Cabinet, Communications Workers of America, IBEW, She Metals Workers, Run for Something, Lucha, Working Family Parties, Stonewall Democrats, and Growing. The choice is clear on education, on experience, on housing, water, campaign financing, etc. We respectfully ask for your vote for Brian Garcia, myself, Juan Mendez, and Lauren Kuby. Thank you all so much, and thank you for tuning in.
Thank you so much. Ms. Connolly.
Thank you, Kira. And Kira, you've done a great job moderating tonight. You really have. So thanks everyone for joining us. In Legislative District 8, I feel we need a different direction. And I'm looking to provide that new direction. A new and straightforward approach to representation, coming together, whether we come together with voters or whether we come together with legislators, then sharing honest dialogue openly, and then finding continuous threads. I mean, because coalition building right now is vitally important. I'm for effective government that moves policy forward. I'll be sticking to the values that we share as Democrats and working well with others to get things done. I have a good resume, and it's democracy. Let's bring that together. My name is Janine Connolly. Please vote for me in the primary. Thank you.
Right. This concludes our debate. Thank you all so much for participating, and thank you for your patience as we navigated some minor technical difficulties. To the voters, we thank you all who took the time out to watch the debate tonight and inform yourselves before the July 30th primary election. We encourage you to visit azcleanelections.gov for official, accurate voting information. Thank you so much, everyone.